Good morning, neighbor. Take a deep breath. Can you smell it? The air has changed. It is still February, and the snow is still hip deep in the shadows of the spruce trees. But something is different. The wind has lost its sharpest teeth. The sun feels a little heavier, a little warmer on the back of your neck. The sky has shifted from that hard, steel gray of January to a soft, hopeful azure blue. It is the season of the sugar moon. It is the time when the forest begins to wake up from its long, frozen sleep. I am standing in the doorway of the drive shed, looking out at the back 40, my sugar bush. That is what we call a grove of maple trees here in the north. It isn't just a forest, it is a factory. A silent, living factory that runs on sunshine and frost. I pull on my heavy wool coat, the red and black plaid one that smells faintly of wood smoke and sheep. I step into my snowshoes. Crunch, crunch. The snow this morning is perfect. We had a deep freeze last night, -10 degrees. But today it is supposed to go up to +5. Warm days, freezing nights. That is the magic spell. That is the rhythm that pumps the heart of the maple tree. It tells the roots to send the sap rushing up to the branches, preparing for the buds to burst. I am dragging a sled behind me. On it sits a stack of tin buckets, clanging softly together like chaotic church bells. Clang, clank, clunk. Beside them is my toolkit, a hammer, a bag of spiles. Those are the little metal taps, and the most important tool of all, the brace and bit. Most people use power drills now. Or worse, they hook the trees up to plastic vacuum tubes that suck the life out of them like a hospital ward. Not me. Arthur and I always did it the old way. The slow way. The brace and bit is a hand drill. It has a wooden handle polished smooth by decades of palms, his and mine. It requires muscle. It requires patience. But it feels respectful. If you are going to ask the tree for its blood, the least you can do is ask politely. By hand. I walk into the tree line. The shadows are long and blue on the white snow. The air is so quiet you can hear the blood rushing in your own ears. Then, a chickadee lands on a branch nearby. Chick-a-dee-dee-dee. Hello there, little supervisor. I whisper. I stop at the first tree. It is a massive sugar maple. The grandfather, we call it. Its trunk is wider than a rain barrel. Its bark is rough, gray, and deeply furrowed, like the face of a very old, very wise man. I take off my mitt and place my bare hand against the bark. It is cold, but if you close your eyes and concentrate, really concentrate, you can almost feel the vibration inside. A hum, a current, the life force rising against gravity. Are you ready, grandfather? I ask. I position the drill bit about waist high, finding a spot where the bark is clean, away from old tap holes. The wood is hard, frozen solid. I lean my weight into the brace. I begin to turn. Gur-hunch, gur-hunch. The sound is loud in the stillness. The steel bit bites into the wood. Pale, creamy shavings spiral out, falling onto the snow like confetti. They smell incredibly fresh, a scent of green wood and water. I drill in about 2 inches. Slight upward angle. That's the secret. You want gravity to help the sap run down. I stop and pull the bit out. And there it is, the miracle. Before I can even reach for the spile, a single drop appears at the lip of the hole. It is clear as a diamond. It hangs there for a split second, catching the sunlight, encompassing the whole world in its reflection. Then, drip, it falls. I quickly take a metal spile from my pocket. I insert it into the hole. Tap, tap, tap. I hammer it in gently. The sound rings out through the woods. Ting, ting, ting. It is the music of spring. I hang the bucket on the hook. Clink. The first drop hits the metal bottom. Clink. Then another. It is a slow, steady heartbeat. I stand back and watch. It seems impossible, doesn't it? That out of this frozen, dead-looking landscape, sweetness is flowing. It reminds me that even when things look cold and lifeless on the outside, there is usually something moving deep within, waiting for the right warmth to bring it out. I have 50 more trees to tap today. My shoulders will ache tonight. My fingers will be numb. But listening to that first plink, it makes every ache worthwhile. The season has begun. The sun climbs higher in the sky. It is midday now, and the sugar bush has transformed into a symphony. When I first hung the buckets, the sound was a sharp, metallic ping, ping, ping as the drops hit the empty tin bottoms. But now, hours later, the sound has changed. It has deepened. As the buckets fill up, the sound becomes a dull, rhythmic thud, thud, thud. It is a heavy, satisfied sound, like a full stomach. It tells me that the trees are generous today. The temperature has risen just enough to thaw the surface of the snow, turning the top layer into a wet, granular slush that clings to my snowshoes. Walking becomes harder. Every step is a negotiation with gravity. I leave my drill behind and grab the gathering pails, too large. 5-gallon plastic buckets strapped to my sled. I walk to the grandfather tree first. The tin bucket hanging from the spile is heavy. I lift it off the hook. It is nearly full. The clear liquid sloshes dangerously near the rim. I bring it to my lips before I pour it. This is a ritual. Neighbor, you have to taste the raw harvest. I take a sip. It is shocking cold. It tastes like ice water that has been filtered through 1,000 layers of roots and rocks. But then, at the very back of your throat, you catch it, a faint, ghostly whisper of sweetness. It isn't sugary like candy. It is a woody, earthy sweetness. It tastes like the forest itself. It tastes like clean air. I pour the sap into the gathering pail. Whoosh! It foams up slightly, clear as gin. This is the part that people don't understand about maple syrup. They see the expensive bottle on the shelf and they complain about the price. They don't know the golden rule of the North, 40-1. It takes 40 gallons of this clear, watery sap to make just 1 single gallon of syrup. You have to boil away 39 gallons of water. You have to distill the essence of the forest down to its very soul. It is a lesson in patience. It is a lesson that good things, true things, do not come easily. You have to work for the concentration. You have to sacrifice the volume to get the value. I move from tree to tree. Lift, pour, rehang, lift, pour, rehang. My back begins to protest. A dull ache settles between my shoulder blades. My gloves are soaked through with spilled sap, and my fingers are starting to prune. I look at the sled. The gathering pails are full now, sloshing heavily. I grab the rope handle. I lean forward, digging my boots into the slush, and pull. Grunt. The sled resists at first, then slides forward with a heavy hiss. I am playing the role of the draft horse today. In the old days, Arthur would carry a wooden yoke across his shoulders, balancing 2 massive buckets like a milkmaid. He was strong as an ox. I can see him in my mind's eye, trudging through this snow, his breath puffing out like a steam engine, whistling a tune. Keep moving, Betty, he would say. The sap doesn't wait for a backache. I drag the load towards the center of the clearing. There it stands, the sugar shack. It isn't a fancy building. It is a rough cedar cabin with a steep metal roof and a cupola on top to let the steam escape. It looks dark and dormant right now, a sleeping bear in the snow. But inside holds the heart of the operation, the evaporator. As I approach, the shadows of the trees are getting longer, stretching out like blue fingers across the white ground. The temperature is starting to drop again. I can feel the crispness returning to the air, freezing the slush back into ice. This is good. The trees need to rest tonight. They need the freeze to recharge the pressure for tomorrow's flow. It is a cycle of inhale and exhale, freeze and thaw, rest and run. I reach the holding tank outside the shack. I lift the heavy pails. my muscles trembling with the effort, and pour the sap through a cheesecloth filter. It catches the bits of bark, the stray pine needles, and the occasional unfortunate moth. The tank fills up. I have gathered maybe 50 gallons today. That means, I do the math in my head, maybe a gallon and a quarter of syrup. It doesn't seem like much for a day's labor, does it? But looking at that clear water in the tank, knowing it came from the ground I stand on, from the trees I have watched grow for 50 years, it feels like liquid gold. I wipe my forehead with the back of my wet glove. The sun is dipping below the tree line. The crows are calling out their good nights. Caw, caw. Now comes the fire. Now comes the transformation. I open the door to the sugar shack. It smells of wood ash and old sweetness. I am tired, neighbor, but the night is just beginning. Welcome to the sauna, neighbor. Inside the sugar shack, the world is no longer cold. In fact, it is tropical. I have lit the fire in the arch. That's what we call the massive iron stove that sits underneath the evaporator pans. It is a hungry beast. It eats logs of hardwood as fast as I can feed them. Clang. I throw in a piece of dry birch. Whoosh. The fire roars in approval. It sounds like a dragon breathing in the belly of the shack. The heat radiating from the cast iron door is intense, flushing my cheeks and drying the damp wool of my coat instantly. Above the fire, the magic is happening. The evaporator pans are filled with the sap we gathered today. As the fire heats the stainless steel from below, the liquid begins to dance. At first, it is just a simmer, a gentle vibration on the surface. But then, as the temperature climbs, it turns into a rolling boil. Bubble, bubble, hiss. Clouds of steam begin to rise. Massive, billowing white clouds that roll off the pans and fill the room. It is a sweet, sticky fog. It coats my glasses instantly. I have to take them off and wipe them on my flannel shirt. The air becomes thick and heavy with humidity. Condensation gathers on the ceiling beams and drips down like warm rain. Drip, drip. The smell is evolving. Can you smell it? When we started, it smelled like wet wood and smoke. But now, oh, now it smells like heaven. It is the scent of caramelization. It is a deep, rich aroma of vanilla, burnt sugar, and toasted nuts. It is a smell that wraps around you and holds you tight. It is the smell of comfort. I stand by the side of the evaporator, holding the skimmer, a long-handled metal scoop. I watch the foam rising to the top. This is the impurities, the niter. I gently skim it off and toss it into a bucket. Splash. The liquid underneath is changing color. It started clear as water. Now, it is turning a pale straw gold. Then amber. It is getting thicker. This is the dangerous part. This is the climax of the night. You cannot leave the fire. You cannot check your phone. You cannot daydream. As the water boils away, the sugar concentration spikes. If the level in the pan gets too low, or if the fire gets too hot, the syrup will scorch. Burnt maple syrup is a tragedy. Neighbor, it tastes like bitter failure. So I watch. I am the guardian of the boil. I check the thermometer. It is climbing. 217 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the magic number. 7 degrees above the boiling point of water. But I don't trust just the numbers. I trust the sheeting test. I dip my metal scoop into the boiling liquid. I lift it up high, letting the syrup pour back into the pan. At first, it just runs off like water. Dribble, dribble, not ready. I feed the fire again. More wood, more heat. The boil becomes violent. The bubbles are smaller now. Tighter, more frantic. They look like golden champagne foam. 10 minutes pass. The steam is so thick I can barely see the far wall. I dip the scoop again. I lift it. This time, the liquid doesn't run. It drags. It hesitates. And then, instead of breaking into drops, the last bit of syrup spreads out along the edge of the scoop. It hangs there for a second, forming a wide, translucent curtain, a sheet before it falls. There, I whisper. My heart gives a little jump. It is the apron. It is ready. I immediately open the draw-off valve. Whoosh! The hot, finished syrup streams out into the finishing pail. It is dark, rich, and absolutely gorgeous, the color of an old violin. I quickly close the valve before the unfinished sap follows it out. I look at the pail. Maybe a gallon and a half. It doesn't look like much volume. But I know what went into it. Hours of labor, thousands of drops, a whole winter's worth of patience. I pull a small tasting cup from the shelf. I catch a little bit of the hot syrup. I blow on it. Woo, woo. I tip it into my mouth. Explosion. It is sweet, yes, but it is complex. It tastes of smoke and minerals and soil and sunshine. It creates a warmth that spreads from my tongue down to my toes. It wakes up every cell in my body. I look at the fire, now dying down to glowing embers. The boil is done. The panic is over. I am alone in a shack in the middle of the woods, covered in sweat and soot, smelling like a pancake breakfast. And I feel like the richest woman in the world. I bank the fire in the arch, closing the heavy iron vents to let the coals smolder safely through the night. The roar of the dragon fades to a gentle purr. I pack up the finished syrup into glass mason jars, sealing them tight. They glow with a deep, dark amber light, like captured sunsets. But before I leave, there is one last thing to do. It is the reward. It is the reason we do this. I take a small pitcher and fill it with the finishing syrup, the stuff that was boiled just a few degrees hotter than the rest. It is thick, viscous, almost like molten glass. I push open the heavy wooden door of the sugar shack and step out into the night. Gasp. The cold hits me like a physical slap. After hours in the tropical steam of the shack, the night air feels impossibly crisp. It rushes into my lungs, sharp and clean, scrubbing away the smell of smoke and sugar. My skin tingles with the thermal shock. The sweat on my forehead instantly begins to cool. I walk over to a pristine drift of snow near the woodpile. It has to be clean snow. Neighbor, freshly fallen, untouched by footprints or animals. It glitters in the moonlight like a pile of diamond dust. I hold the pitcher high. I tilt it. Drip. Stream. I pour the boiling hot syrup onto the freezing cold snow. I pour it in long, wavy lines, strips of gold laid out on a white canvas. Hiss. There is a faint sound of steam as the two extremes meet. The heat battles the cold for a split second, and the cold wins. The syrup instantly seizes up. It doesn't melt the snow away, it rests on top of it, hardening rapidly from a liquid into a soft, pliable solid. It is alchemy right before your eyes. I reach into my pocket and pull out a clean wooden popsicle stick. I wait exactly 10 seconds. You have to count it. 1 maple leaf, 2 maple leaves, 3 maple leaves. Then, I press the stick into one end of the golden strip and start to roll. I wind it up, round and round, gathering the sticky, semi-frozen taffy onto the stick like a lollipop. It pulls away from the snow cleanly, leaving a perfect impression behind. I lift it up. It is translucent, glowing in the moonlight. I take a bite. Oh, my heavens. The texture is chewy, resistant, sticking to your teeth in the most delightful way. But the temperature, that is the magic. It is freezing cold on the outside. But as you chew, the warmth of the boiled sugar releases inside your mouth. It is fire and ice. It is the taste of pure joy. It tastes like being 6 years old again, standing here with my father, waiting for the first taste of spring. I finish the taffy, licking the sticky residue from my lips. I feel a surge of energy, a sugar rush that chases away the fatigue in my legs. I load the jars onto the sled. It is lighter now than it was this morning. The heavy, watery sap has been reduced to this concentrated treasure. I grab the rope and start the trek back to the house. The woods are silent now. The birds are asleep. The squirrels are tucked away in their drays. I look up. The sugar moon is high in the sky, full and bright, casting long, stark shadows across the snow. The stars are piercingly clear, millions of them, dusted across the Milky Way like spilled salt. I stop for a moment and look back at the trees. The grandfather maple stands tall and stoic in the moonlight. The bucket on his side is empty now, waiting for tomorrow's sun to start the flow again. I feel a deep sense of gratitude towards these silent giants. They give us so much. They give us shade in the summer, color in the autumn, wood for our fires, and now, their very lifeblood to sweeten our winter. People ask me why I still do this alone. Why I drag the sleds and chop the wood and stay up all night boiling sap when I could just buy a bottle at the store. It is because of this walk home. Neighbor, it is the feeling of being part of the cycle. Winter is hard. It is long and dark, and sometimes it feels like it will never end. But the sap run proves us wrong. It proves that deep down, under the frozen ground, life is still moving, hope is still rising. I reach the house. The windows are dark, reflecting the moon. I stomp the snow off my boots on the porch. Stomp, stomp. I open the door and step into the warmth of my kitchen. I place the jar of syrup on the table. It catches the light, a beacon of amber gold. I am tired. My back aches. My hair smells like wood smoke. My hands are sticky, but I made it through another winter. The sweetness is back, and tomorrow morning, we do it all over again. Sleep well, neighbor. The forest is working while we dream.